All right, here's the last couple that are kind of challenge questions. So you'll probably see these throughout the textbook, which are a bit trickier, and I'll explain why they're a little bit more difficult. First thing to think about is, how do you make things more difficult? Well, you probably just like make the question longer, right? That doesn't inherently make it more difficult, but I think it creates more room for error. Like, look at this first one. It's sort of these three different expressions now. And we want to think about, how am I going to put these all together? Need to definitely mute that bad boy, which I don't have a mute switch. Yeah. All right, so here's a few questions that are a bit more difficult. We'll call them some challenge questions. And I guess we're going to think about, how do they make problems more difficult generally? Well, maybe they can make the numbers bigger, or they can make them a bit longer. Like this one's a little bit longer. This fraction is a few more things going on. But essentially the way that we solve them is the same, right? And you might see these throughout the questions that you're given. First things first, always make sure you do the coefficients, multiply them first. So I've got 3 times 7 is 21, times 10 is 210. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at all the m variables, right? So I've got, I'm going to actually, anytime I see a single power of m, I just write m to the power 1. Yeah. So m to the power 1, m cubed, m to the power 5. These are all multiplied, by the way. So I'm actually going to add these indices. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9, so that's m to the power 9. And same thing with the n's. So I've got n squared times n squared times n to the power 9. So what I'm actually going to get is 4 plus 4 take away 9. 4 plus 4 take away 9 is actually negative 5. Negative indices, we haven't really talked too much about what they mean. Hold on to that for now, because we will look at that a little bit later on. But for now, it's fine to just leave it as n to the negative 5. Okay. Next one. Same idea, you just got a lot more sort of variables here, right? But again, my recommendation, do them separately. Do the 42 divided by 7. I know that's equal to 6. Now, just be careful, because sometimes it depends on what the powers are doing here. Like, they may not always simplify as you'd expect them. P to the power 5 divided by P to the power 1. Well, that's P to the power 5 take away 1, which is 4. Q to the power 4 take away Q to the power 3. That's just going to be Q to the power 1, or just Q. Okay, so the takeaway is, when you look at a fraction and you've got these sort of indices going on, do them again separately with the ones with the same base. And think about what that's going to look like, and you can represent that like so. Sometimes you may even get negative indices. Yeah. Last one, we've got two fractions multiplied, and we sort of talked about this before, but when you multiply two fractions, you can just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators across, right? So here in this case, again, if there's no number, no coefficient, it's just 1, so I can leave the 3 there. I've got 3x, and then here, that's y to the power 1. I'm going to add these indices here, 1 and 2, that's y cubed, right? And then over here, same thing, I'm going to multiply across the denominator. So I've got 2y cubed times x to the power 4, y to the power 1 again. So no numbers again, I'll just leave it. So it's 2 x to the power 4, there's no other x's there, y to the power 4. What that means now is, well, okay, I've got some interesting things going on. Actually, what kind of happens is, because these numbers on the numerator are smaller than the numbers on the denominator, I'm going to get some negative values. The question is, where do you sort of put the variables, right? Because I know the 3 on 2 is not going to change. I'll leave that for now, because I can put that in already. Let's make a bit more space. There's a few ways you can write it. The way I'm going to start writing it out first, and hopefully it makes the most sense, is what happens when you do 1 take away 3? Well, 1 take away 3 gives me negative 3, okay? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to leave it as x to the negative 3 for now, okay? Same thing over here. This is going to be 3 take away 4, which gives me y to the power negative 1. Now, in your answers, they may not actually write it out like this. They may write it out like this, okay? Now, these actually mean the same thing. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about why that is. And we're going to look at negative indices a bit later on. But you can probably have a think about what's going on from here, this step to this step. Both of these, I would say, are acceptable. Okay. This one's probably more often what they're going to leave their answer in, for a reason I'll talk about later. But that's just a bit of a taste for you. Hopefully that's a bit of an introduction into multiplying and dividing indices.